Welcome to the Black Table Talk. My name is Aisha. I am a grade 11 student, and I'm so happy to be hosting this wonderful event with.
Hi, I am Atun. I'm a 15-year-old Black hockey player, and we are both in the Slice program.
Awesome. Yeah. So we are joined by Tara, Marion, and Mark, who are our wonderful panelists, and we are so excited to be having this conversation on Black History Month. Please feel free to introduce yourselves.
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Tara Lewis, and I'm an executive assistant in the live entertainment department at MLSE. So what my job entails is pretty much dealing with kind of being a jack of all trades. I help keep the whole team, live events team, informed and together. And what we do is deal with any of the bookings that happen within any of the facilities for MLSE, which includes Coaster Bank Arena, Coca-Cola Coliseum, and BMO Field. I've been with the company, August this year will be my 12th year. And I guess maybe a little fun fact about myself. I'm a mother of 4, but I do have 22-year-old twin boys, a 13-year-old boy, and a 4-year-old little girl. And I apologize from now if you hear any stamping. I'm downstairs, she's upstairs, and it's kind of hard to keep us apart because she just always wants to be up under me. She may make an appearance, but no promises.
I love that, Tara. That's a hard one to follow. But hello, everyone. My name is Mark Fraser. I'm a former professional hockey player for 14 years and 6 years played in the NHL for the New Jersey Devils, Edmonton Oilers, and Toronto Maple Leafs. I am now back with the Toronto Maple Leafs working as their player development lead for equity, diversity, and inclusion. So basically what that means, there's a lot of different hats that I wear as well, but it's everything from creating our education and awareness training for our team and for our staff for equity, diversity, and inclusion, to working with new community groups in grassroots hockey, as well as kind of everything else in between. Just continuing to try to change the culture of hockey from within to create more opportunities and more diversity at a high level of the NHL, and continue to have greater and stronger outreach programs in the equity seeking groups in our community. And I guess this is, again, my first year back, but I'm almost 11 months, almost at 1 full year back within the organization. So I have a long ways to go yet before I catch up to Tara.
And hello, everyone. My name is Mariana J. I am the Management Development Associate with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I've actually been working here for 5 months now, which I was sharing with our other panelists. It feels like I've been working here for like 2 years because I'm actually having the time of my life. So what my role kind of consists of is that I'm in a awesome special program where I get to work with front office staff, everyone from our president to our GM to even our director of business relations, as well as people like Mark. And I get to kind of shadow them, get to understand their roles a little bit more, and then work on special projects with them. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As you can see, our wonderful panelists, like words can't even describe how amazing, exceptional, excellent these amazing Black icons are. So we appreciate having you on this podcast. Why don't we just kick off the conversation by asking, I know it's a bit of a heavy question, but how has being Black impacted your career? Now, this can be positively or negatively.
I think I'll go first. In regards to impacting my career positively, I would say when I started with MLSE, I was the only Black person on my team. I still we have one more Black person on my team, but they started maybe like 2 years ago. And I feel like positively, I've added to the different perspectives and point of views to the team that we have in our venues that puts on the events and has to deal with people coming into our buildings, especially in the sense that we have a team that's mostly white that puts on our concerts, that puts on, like, deals with the basketball games, that deals with the hockey games. But the people that they're dealing with that are coming into our buildings, a lot of them are not white. About 80% of the shows that we have or the sporting events that we have are not majority Caucasian played sports. So coming in with my perspective, I've had to like check a few people on their point of views and things that they do to let them know that that's not fair. And so in the sense that, like, if someone's applying for a job, the first thing they want to do is look up the person and see what the person looks like, or even just like the assumptions on when they see names, and or if artists are coming in, they have the assumptions of things that are going to happen within the building because of the specific artist or type of artist that's coming in the building. So the ability to be able to like tell people, yeah, no, that's not going to fly here. And especially with me being here, I'm going to tell you, shut that down. So positively, I think it's opened a lot of people's eyes to make them think first before they make an inappropriate comment that they might have made before and nobody would check them on. And it's also like kind of rubbed off on my peers for them to check other people that make those comments if they deal with them throughout other parts of the business.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear that, Be Positive has impacted, your workspace and the work culture as well. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing this, Tara. Mr. Mark, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I could say I come from an interesting perspective on this, being a former hockey player, and obviously there not being many Black hockey players. The job I have now in the equity, diversity, and inclusion space with the Maple Leafs is largely because I'm Black, and not that they gave this just to a Black person. It's actually because after the murder of George Floyd and everything that was happening in our world with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, hockey was also not being overly kind to the lived experience and to some of this movement and what was being said and happening. There wasn't a lot of support from the hockey community. And I just retired, and I found myself at this weird intersection of being a Black, newly retired hockey player and a Black man, but a hockey player at the same time. And I actually reached out to the Maple Leafs 2 summers ago and spoke to the general manager and suggested this is a time I think hockey really needs to look into diversity and inclusion type roles. And with my lived experience and being a former player for the team, I believe I can help the team kind of get there. So being Black is actually kind of, in some essence, although I kind of shot the shot myself and didn't wait for anyone to kind of create a position, I was more encouraging the team to do so. But it's being Black and having that lived experience as a Black hockey player that actually made me so valuable in this position, working with the team that's majority white, but being able to share perspective and some experience and awareness that they may not be used to or might have a bias against of their own unknowingly. So that has helped me out a lot in the position of just, again, having that lived experience as a Black man. But where it's had perhaps a negative effect on me is at times throughout my playing career, again, just dealing with what a lot of Black players do deal with, and a lot of Black just people in society, unfortunately, in the workplace do deal with. And that's the many microaggressions or unconscious bias, the things that are said from fans, might just be from a rink attendant or someone just walking by you, kind of assuming where can I help you, sir? Where are you looking to go? Not realizing I actually belong in this space. I'm one of the players on the team. You're only here because I'm here. And a lot of times, even in my career, having to constantly prove yourself, almost being pigeonholed or labeled. I was a big tough guy too when I played hockey, and I really enjoyed that role and that part of it. But sometimes the Black hockey players who are really large size and physical, they get pigeonholed into just being the tough guy instead of being someone who's capable of actually playing at a high level as well. So constantly having to almost prove my worth more so than some of my peers had to, was I think one way that being Black had a negative effect. But I was always very proud to be different in the spaces that I was in, though.
That's so great to hear. I appreciate you sharing such amazing words, and your journey is so amazing as a Black hockey player. Yeah, over to you, Miss Marion. Thoughts?
Yeah. So I think Mark and Tara kind of touched on a lot of similar things that I would share, but for me, I think about times where I would apply for jobs and, felt like everything was going well. I'd get into a job interview and see people's reactions to me. So I knew that that was kind of negatively impacting work opportunities for myself. I've, had instances where people have encouraged me to change my last name on resumes or remove my picture from applications just to kind of essentially give me, I guess, a fair and fighting chance. So there have been times where it's been negative, but I think for the most part, I've tried to really find positive aspects of, how being Black has kind of impacted me from a career standpoint. So similar to Tara, wherever I've worked, I've always made sure that I always wanted to implement something in terms of diversity and inclusion, even if it wasn't something that was related to my role. I wanted to be sure that I was bringing diverse thought, diverse views, images, wherever it is I worked, if it meant going the extra mile. And I guess similar to Mark, like me being able to work in this really awesome role with the Toronto Maple Leafs, a part of it has to do with the fact that I am a Black woman in this space. And oftentimes we're not given a fair shot to get to work in professional sports. And so this program was intentionally created to be able to provide really great and unique opportunities for Black, Indigenous, and other racialized and marginalized groups in this space. So yeah, I think that's been a bit of an asset for me. But I also do think that my resume and my experience have been able to speak for themselves as well. So.
If I may add one thing there to just again reiterate what Marion just said, but yes, absolutely, being in her role, being a Black woman, 100% is an asset, but that's not actually what defines her qualifications for being a part of this job. Or for being in the role that she's in. It's very much everything outside of just who she is on the outside and who she is on the inside and what she's capable of. And I know you know that, Marion, but for everyone else, just wanted to reiterate that.
Just to go back on the things that Tara and Mark said, I am on a hockey team and I am one of the 3 Black hockey players on my team, and there is a lot of things still going on. A player was told one of my teammates that you don't belong here. And that was just something that we all weren't okay with. And it's just great to see how everybody on our team just came forward just to think that's not an okay thing to say. Something needs to be done about this. And we're only around 8 minutes in, and this has become very powerful, and I can relate to this very much. So I just want to thank you guys for just doing this in general and for telling your stories.
Sorry, can I just add one more thing? Because when Mark first started here, because my son, he also plays he plays recreational hockey. He plays rep basketball, but he plays recreational hockey. And when Mark first started, I sent him an email and I was just like, what are you going to be doing in regards to making sure these programs, because that are more beneficial to the kids in these areas? Because my son, he's a great hockey player, but me as a mother, I don't know if I would feel comfortable putting my son in that environment, because he's one of the sweetest kids that wants everybody to like him, but I don't want him to have to play hockey and go somewhere and face racism, because I might catch a case. I'm sorry for saying that, but Bobby Webster said it when the whole George Floyd, when that whole event happened, he said, we need to be proactive instead of reactive, right? So these things need to be put in place. So you're not just reacting to something happening, you're preventing those things from happening.
Yeah, very well said, very well put. Yeah.
Yeah, Tara, it's just like that thing. If you watch the Tape Out Hate commercial, Wayne Simmons was asked the question. He was asked, if your daughter encountered the same racism that you did, that you have, would you put her in hockey? And Wayne Simmons answered, probably not. But yeah, just to relate to that, that is a very certain and very serious issue that just needs to be done something about this, because this is unacceptable.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, definitely. And to speak on it, I personally am an athlete myself. Obviously, I don't have a career quite yet. I when I tell somebody that I am an athlete, obviously they say, you're a Black girl. You must be playing basketball. You must be playing football. They never first think, wrestling, which is the sport that I do. So I'm just thinking of Matan, who does hockey, and Mark, who's in hockey as well. So again, that's a sport that's mostly white dominated. And again, wrestling, when you see it on TV, it's mostly white dominated, or there's WWE, the fake wrestling and things like that. But you never think of a Black girl. So a Black hijabi Muslim girl. So just the pressure of like being placed into different stereotypes just by saying, you're an athlete, and carrying, like, I kind of just cower away from saying that, I wrestle. Like, I'm proud of myself, the work that I do, but positively, like, I feel good when I do my sport. But when it comes to just saying it and like telling people, I wrestle, that's something I do. I don't really like say it with pride. I'm like, oh, I wrestle, or I just say I play basketball because, kind of fits with how I look, So I feel like that definitely would have an impact on if I decided to take up a wrestling career. Yeah. So just wanted to turn the question to the people who play hockey. Do you feel that there is any like any stereotypes that are forced upon you, like just by you being a Black person who plays a white dominated sport?
Definitely. Yeah. As I had referred to before, I enjoyed the fighting element of hockey and playing the physical side. And a little bit bigger now, but I was playing at 6'3", about 225 pounds. So a big guy, and loved hitting. But that meanness came with sort of stereotypically fitting me into, well, just being the enforcer then. He's this big Black bruiser on the ice, bodyguard, and nothing more. So in that sense, definitely. And if I may say, I would continue to encourage you to be proud and to let people know, be bold even. I'm a wrestler. Of course, being 6'3", I'm always asked, oh, you must be a basketball player, always. And now for a number of years now, I've been turning around and saying, no, hockey, actually. And I almost get a little chuckle inside of watching the person's reaction, be like, really? Because in my mind, I'm saying, well, you need to start getting used to hockey players looking like this, because I've been a pro for 14 years and I'm not the first one. So I almost like to say it in a bold way, where I put it back on the person, to be almost for making them think for half a second, oh, should I not have maybe thought that so quickly? So you can do the same thing. You can say, no, I'm a wrestler. And all that's going to do is just put that person in that state of mind that, oh, maybe I shouldn't have assumed otherwise. But yeah, definitely there are moments where definitely felt stereotyped in the game. And again, largely because of how I played it. But one thing that I always felt the support of was from like my teammates in that sense. And Matan, that might have been something you just referred to as well, the support of your teammates, and how despite different stereotypes that may be out there and that we should be doing a different sport, or we only fit in this particular role in the sport, that was never something I felt from my teammates. And I was very proud and happy of that.
I've been very lucky. I haven't dealt with a lot of stereotypes. I probably think that because of just my height in general, I'm 5'8" off skates. I'm not that big. I'm only like 5'11" on skates, so I'm not that big. But I am not trying to be so physical. I'm trying to score now and help my team. And you're a lot of players are always being judged. Oh yeah, he's the enforcer. If you look at Wayne Simmons and Ryan Reeves, just a few examples. Yes, they're enforcers, but they can also score goals. Wayne Simmons didn't he have like a 20-goal season at some point in his career? Ryan Reeves has a 2-goal game out of nowhere. I mean, yeah, we can play physical, but we can also put the puck in the back of the net and just make the game totally different.
No argument, no complaints coming from me.
So we are going to move to the next question here. When did you realize that your identity impacted how hard you have to work to achieve your goals, and what's something you could have achieved that you are most proud of?
I'll go first. My identity from when I was old enough to understand that I was Black, right? Because when kids are born, like as a child, you don't really know about like different colors and stuff like that. Like you think everyone's is the same. They might look a different color than you, but you still think everybody is the same, right? And then when you go into school, or if any incident happens in school, your parents are always constantly telling you, you need to work harder, you need to be better, you need to always have like kind of like a self-control to check yourself, because something you might do as a Black child in school, you will not get away with, but a white child that's your counterpart would get away with. So it'd be like, okay, yeah, I saw Sally and she pushed the teacher. Sally would get away with that. But Tara, if Tara was to push the teacher, no, Tara would not be getting away with that. So from being a child, you learn that, and your parents are always instilling in you. You need to, even like interactions with the police. Unfortunately, you have to understand how you have to deal with the police. I'm fortunate enough that I've only ever had one interaction with the police on a negative level, and I didn't react. I don't think I react properly, but I reacted the way someone that wasn't Black would have reacted, right? So I was with my ex, and we were pulled over by the police, and they told us to get out of the car. They wanted ID, and then they wanted me to get into the back of the cruiser. And I was like, hell no, I'm not getting in the back of that car. I'm not a criminal. You have my information. I'm not getting in the back of the car. And they were like, if you don't get in the back of the car, we're gonna put your face down on the concrete. And I was just like, you do what you need to do, but I'm not a criminal. I'm not getting in the back of the car. I was so upset. I was crying. And my ex, he was just like, T, calm down. T, calm down. Because him as a Black man, he's used to that. He's experienced it before. And he knows you just need to be quiet, keep your head down, keep moving. And for me, it never even entered my head that I would experience that. So it's just like, it sucks that the world is like that, that because of your skin color, you're treated differently, and you can't react the way any normal person would react that has any type of sense. Like, I'm not gonna just blindly do what someone tells me to do without giving me a reason why you want to do this. So yeah, from when I was a kid, like, you know that Black is different. Unfortunately, but the thing is, it's not different, if that makes sense, right? And yeah, your parents, I know everyone's probably heard their parents always tell them, you have to work harder in school, you have to be better.
For me, the first sort of realization of my identity and having to work harder or even be different was at probably around the teenage age, when I really kind of started to, obviously, some, like, if you look different from your friends growing up, but what that actually means. Just being a teenager, I think, and having a lot of hockey buddies who were my close friends in my community, and the silly things that teenagers do. And I remember, not that I was a bad kid, and I was often a good kid, but being afraid to go that extra, crossing the line, that extra step to like get into like some mischievous trouble, because although we were kids and although it was probably innocent, if we were, say, running on top of like school portables or doing something like that, I often had a fear that if there were police or someone were to come around, I could be treated differently. And not that I had this thought strictly with the police. I think it was just knowing that I was almost trained by my dad, perhaps, to understand that your friends might be able to get away from with things that you can't. And I learned that as well in hockey throughout, and it was more evident when I was a professional and I was 25 years old, and I had been traded. I'd spent my third year starting in the NHL with the New Jersey Devils, and I ended up I wasn't playing much, so I got traded to Anaheim, and Anaheim quickly, they sent me down to their farm team, which was in Syracuse. And before I knew it, Syracuse was just kind of leaving me in the minors, and I didn't really know why, because I'd just been an NHL veteran for the last 3 years. And I got passed on by waivers, and that means every team had a chance to kind of grab me, and no one did. And I was just really discouraged. And that was the first time my dad had told me what his dad had told him. And that was, sometimes you just have to work twice as hard for half the chance. And I think that's something that a lot of us have had to hear. Many women in the corporate world have had to hear that. But as a Black man and a Black hockey player, that was something the first time I was 25, when my dad sort of reminded me of that, those words. And I wrote it down. I never forgot it, that I can't assume that any negative thing that's happened to me in my career was because I was Black. That I think would be naive and silly. But in some moments, I might be judged differently, and I just might have to work harder at an opportunity that my peers might just get handed to them, that I have to earn. So I just continue to keep that mentality of, no matter what, I'm not going to let anyone's preconceived notion or, prejudice towards me affect me and what goals I can achieve. But that might mean that I have to work twice as hard for half of the chance. So I've always been able to kind of keep that mentality in the back of my mind. And I think the second part of the question was just like things that we've done that we're proud about. I mean, obviously playing in the NHL, I'm very proud about, because it was very hard to do. But also just being in the space that I'm in right now, back with the Maple Leafs. I'm really proud to be back with such a great organization in the NHL, but really proud to be in hockey. I had no intention when I retired to get back into hockey. I wanted a clean break from hockey for a while, but I'm proud to be back in and to be doing the work that I'm doing. I'm in hockey, but I'm trying to not just develop the players as athletes, but I'm trying to develop them as quality people and good quality men and allies, and help them to change the culture of hockey from within. So that's something I think I'm very proud of. And Marion, I'll let you jump in there.
Yeah, so I think Mark and Tara both touched on something that's really big. I think it's something unique oftentimes to Black parents, like to have to be the ones to tell your children that, hey, like, you are awesome people, you're a great person, but one day you're going to be in a space where people are going to remind you that you are different. And that's going to result in them maybe treating you differently or valuing your intelligence differently. And I think the same goes for me. Like when I was growing up, my parents always reminded me, like, if somebody in your class is getting a 99, you need to get 100 just because you are a Black girl, and somebody's going to look at you through a different lens. And I remember just being like, okay, I think they're being dramatic. They're overthinking it. And there'd be instances where maybe I would talk out of turn in class, and the repercussions were always different for me, or the way in which teachers were describing me as loud and aggressive or just like uncontrollable. The words used to describe me were always so different compared to some of the white kids in my class. So I think that was definitely like the first instance, having parents having to kind of share that with me. And I know it kind of sounds harsh, but it's when you're raising Black children in spaces and environments that don't value them, you have to equip them correctly, like to go out there and essentially survive in this world. So it was definitely a big reality check for me, but I think it was extremely necessary. With all of that being said, though, I think one of the things that I've been proudest of most was completing a master's degree in sport management. So in 2014, I always knew I wanted to work in sport, but I decided I was going to go get a master's degree just to kind of, again, you always got to work 2 times as hard. So for me, I knew having an undergrad degree was not going to be enough. So went to Western University, did a master's degree. And honestly, it was probably the best experience in my life. And I think what made me that much proud of being able to complete the degree was, I think like the first few months of being in my program, I was having a conversation with one of my classmates about how I think it's crazy that, you see sports all the time. I grew up watching basketball, the NFL, and you see all of these Black bodies being part of the space and like playing the sport. And then you see coaching staff and you see front office people, the people that own the teams, the people that are the GMs, and none of them looked like me. None of them looked like Tara. None of them looked like Mark. And I was just kind of like confused. And in my program, barely anybody looked like me. So I remember having a conversation with one of my classmates, and she made a comment that I essentially only got into my program because of affirmative action, because there was this desire or this like quota that the school had to meet. And I remember like that bothering me so much, because I started to question my value. Did I actually work hard enough? Did I deserve to be in the program? And just a disclaimer, like the school didn't even require you to identify your gender or your race. So my race had absolutely nothing to do with me getting into the program. And I remember for the next like few weeks, I would constantly question whether I was smart enough to answer questions, or whether the things that I had to say were of any value. And it really, really bothered me. You know, I allowed that one moment to kind of devalue all of the hard work that I had done. And then I think one day I just kind of sat there and I was like, no, you worked hard, you deserve to be in this program. I actually got a full ride scholarship to complete my master's degree. And so on graduation day, like I kept reminding myself, you know, I did this. It was because of my grades. It was because of my hard work. It was because I worked 2 times harder than everyone else, and I deserve to be here. And so, yeah, getting my master's degree was definitely a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, Miss Marion. I just wanted to jump in and say that, you know, being a Black woman is like, I don't know the phrase, if you heard, like double homicide. Like, I'm just imagining the amount of like pressure that, you know, Tara and Marion, you faced, and you guys are just adults. And then I'm just like looking back, and I'm just like in high school right now, and I'm already sick of it. It feels like, you know, I heard, you know, Miss Marion, you said that, you know, being called loud, ghetto, and, you know, just that angry Black girl, those labels follow you everywhere. Like, they're just there following you no matter how much you try to escape. And I feel like I've always put on this mask of just being extra nice and hiding different parts of me to just get away from those labels, trying to hide from those labels, just really, really trying to whitewash myself as hard as I could, to making sure that I fit in, to the point where even when I was in a Black space, where I was in a safe space, I couldn't even be myself because I was just so used to being someone else, you know? So I wanted to ask you, Miss Marion, and question too as well, Miss Tara. Do you feel like sometimes you put on a mask and it's so difficult to be Black even when they tell you to be yourself? Like you really just can't be yourself, you know, because you're just so used to the way you grew up, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think oftentimes, and you kind of described it so well, you hit the nail on the head there. You're always kind of like in different spaces, and people have different expectations of you. People want you to be a particular way. Honestly, it took me maybe 20 years to really recognize and realize that like whatever version of myself I want to be is who I'm going to be, and I have to stand in that. I think when I first, again, initially started working in sport, I felt like I had this chip on my shoulder, you know, being this like only oftentimes Black person, or only oftentimes being this only Black woman in this space. And I wanted everybody that I came in contact with to know that I was a hard worker, and that I was intelligent, and that I spoke eloquently, and I delivered myself a particular way. And then I you know, I got into the workspace and I realized that like I could be as polished as I wanted, but people were still going to have their biases. People were still going to treat me a particular way. People were still going to find ways to devalue me. And so I got to a space where I said, whatever, like I need to be who it is God has intended me to be. I need to be the person that I know I want to be. And so right now, like the only opinions that I value are my own, and people that mentor me, and people whose opinions that I value. Because if you're not careful, you're going to spend all of this time, like you mentioned, trying to figure out who everybody else wants you to be, and you're going to get to a point where you don't even know who you are. And it's that causes nothing but stress and frustration. So stand in your truth, be who it is, you know, you really and truly want to be.
Yeah.
1000%. When I started with MLSE, there is a woman in AP. I'm sure you guys both know her, Anise Harvey. And when I was told about her starting in my position, it was kind of like, oh, you don't want Anise emailing you because, you know, if then you're in trouble and she's mad. Like, and I was just like, okay, who's Anise? So I made a point to go and meet with Anise, and me and Anise, like our families have traveled together. Like we've gone on vacations together. Anise she is a Black woman that is amazing at her job, right? And we always have these conversations, because I was telling her that I was coming on this panel, and I was saying that I was going to bring up the same thing about when you express yourself, or when you are doing your job and people, I guess they feel that you are coming down on them or reprimanding them, all of a sudden it's just like, oh, don't get upset. Don't get upset. Like, don't be angry. But it's constantly, I'm not angry. I'm just doing my job and I'm just telling you as it is. But you're making me angry now by telling me that I'm angry. But at the same time, I have to live in my truth as a Black woman, and especially as a mother. Like, I have a daughter. I don't want her to have to hide who she is. I want her to be able to be who she is, be able to talk up and stand for what she believes in. If someone is doing something that's not right, I want her to be able to say something about it and not feel that, oh, she says something, then they're going to be like, oh, this Black girl. And why does it even have to come to this Black girl? Like, why does her skin color even come into play for anything, right? So those you have to deal with people that want you to stay in a certain lane, in a certain corner. Like, you're pretty over there, but once you get a little bit, you do a little too much, I'm not feeling you. And it's even if you have more than one Black person on your team, or if you have other Black females, it's kind of like they're pitted against each other. So both of you cannot rise. It's one or the other. And it should never be that. We should all want to see each other rise.
Marion and Tara, you both put it so well. And I know I'm putting you both on the spot right now, but I just really want to know, just for you as Black women on this panel, what advice would you give to the girls out there that want to go into sport as Black girls? Like, what would you want to say to all of us, you know?
Yeah, I can lead this. I think, like I said, when I was growing up, I didn't really see a lot of Black women working in the professional sports space. I didn't in sport in general, like outside of being the actual athletes. And so I think we have kids in Gen, are you guys Gen Z, Gen X?
Gen Z, yeah.
Gen Z, who are growing up in a different space where, you know, I think in the NBA right now, or in the G League, there are 2 women who are actually GMs for their teams. You're in a space where Field Hockey Ontario, their executive director is a Black woman. I think Softball Ontario at some point had a Black woman who was the GM for the organization. So you're getting to grow up in a space where there are women who look like you, who have lived lives similar to yours. And so you get to see those people, and you get to know that, like, if this is something that I really want to achieve, Marion has done it, or Shauna has done it, or Tara has done it, I can definitely work towards achieving that goal. So be sure to look up to the people that look like you in this space. But I think another thing is always make sure that you're working hard. I think one of the things that I had to learn fairly quickly, like we just discussed, you always kind of have to go the extra mile. But the one lesson I think I learned for myself was, I'm not going the extra mile because I feel like I have to prove myself to anybody. I'm going the extra mile because I want to develop my skills. Right now, as I speak to you, I have worked jobs as an equipment manager. I've worked jobs in marketing, in sports marketing. I've worked jobs in sport operations. And it's because at every single twist and turn, I knew that I had to be the person that knew every single thing. So that if I was ever asked to do anything, I knew how to do it. I've taught myself how to use a variety of programs, how to develop a variety of skills. So make sure that you're always going above and beyond for the sake of kind of bettering yourself. And then I think another thing in terms of really wanting to kind of get into the sports space is make sure that you're willing to reach out and touch base with anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be people that look at you. I've had informational interviews with allies, with white women, with Asian men who have been willing to take some time to chat with me and tell me about their careers. So feel like there's a variety of people that you can reach out to if it means doing internships with them or having an informational interview with them. Be sure that you're really kind of expanding your network, getting a chance to meet other people, and really putting yourself out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to add to that, there are, like, for Black people, it's always, you're either the artist or you are a player. There are so many different careers within these industries that support all, like, the day-to-day going-ons. Like, for games to happen, you have people that are in the media rooms, that are doing production, that are doing, like, even just running the games, right? To be aware of all the different aspects of the jobs the things that you're interested in these industries, because not everybody can be a player. And sometimes not everybody has the skills to be that player, right? So always make sure that you're aware of all the opportunities that are out there, because if you're not aware of an opportunity, then you don't even know that this is something that you could be doing. So then you can be adding to the visual, like adding to more people of minority being visual in all these positions. So you'll see a lot more people on the sidelines with headsets, or you'll see a lot more people just directing things, and that will help to create a future generation that you're seeing people that look like you.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just going to add one more thing just to build on that. I think again, you can't be what you can't see. So if you don't have any clue where to kind of discover sports management or like sport related jobs, if you're old enough, you can make a LinkedIn account, type in your favorite sports team or sports organization, and you'll see people that work a variety of different roles. If you want, you can go on MLSE's website. They always list a variety of different jobs that kind of exist within that space. And so you can start reading the job descriptions, figure out what kind of like educational background you need, what kind of skills you need to start to develop. But what Tara said is spot on. Like there's a variety of different roles that you could have within a variety of sports organizations. So make sure that you're kind of just doing some research. If you love marketing, you can work in sports marketing. If you love, again, equipment, you can be an equipment manager. If maybe it's as simple as you just love working with people, you can work in human resources for a sport organization. So be sure to kind of do your research, read up on the roles that exist, and make sure that you get the qualifications and the skills you need to kind of thrive in that space.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. This is so much great advice. I feel like Black women, girls needed to hear, and like just the weight of carrying, just being that athlete or being an artist. And Tara, you put it so well, like there's just those two, it seems like there's just those two options, but there's so much more that Marion and Tara, you just mentioned. I really appreciate that.
Yes, and Mark, I'm going to give you a chance to speak up on this here. What would you say, or what advice would you give to a young Black hockey player like myself, or really any kid out there?
That's a good question. I feel like nowadays, what I often try to say to encourage young Black hockey players and also their parents, I speak with a number of Black hockey parents as well. We see they're it's similar to who we are in society. We're going to experience at times prejudice and racism because unfortunately there's this ignorant people around, and sports is often a safe space. So it almost hurts more when you see something like this happen in, let's say, hockey, because we think, well, this is sport, it should be equal and safe for everyone. We know that there's some jerks out there in the world, but there shouldn't be in our safe space of sport. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. I think for myself, being a Black hockey player helped me to be, being a Black hockey player, I think helped me to be more of a resilient Black man. And knowing that I faced things in hockey actually only prepared me for things out in society. And so by saying that, I'm not saying that to try to discourage any young Black hockey players from continuing to love the game that they play or to stay in the game. But I say that more so, I think Marion might have touched on earlier about the different ways that our parents try to prepare us for what's actually out there in the world. So when I do speak to parents or to young Black hockey players like yourself, Matan, I try to encourage them that despite the negative that we do see, and it is important to shine a light on that negative when it happens, there's also a lot of positive and really amazing experiences that come from this game. Again, the fact that I have the job that I do have allows me to be on the inside now and work. And although the wins and the movement feels really slow and incremental at times, things are changing, things are happening. And again, my overall experience of being able to speak up and share more of my stories after my retirement about what some of the bad things I experienced as a Black hockey player were, it actually only met a lot of my friends and peers, my white teammates who were with me along those journeys, those years, who maybe weren't aware. They then started reaching out more saying, oh, I just didn't even know. And the amount of overwhelming support that I found also within the hockey community, there's also those bad folks, but the support is there as well. So I would encourage any young Black hockey player to continue to just be themselves, continue to do what you love, continue to play the game you love, challenge your teammates to continue to be supportive. If I think, Matan, you said one of your players or one of your teammates, Black teammates, may have been victims of some harsh words recently from another opposing team. You know, continue to encourage your teammates that they know this is wrong, but they need to be vocal too and call it out. It can't just be the few Black guys on the team. If you're even lucky to have another Black guy on your team to have to defend you, it has to be from our white peers too. And that's something that I've been trying to address with a lot of my white colleagues. But the only other thing I'd say is shine, just like continue to be yourself. Marion said earlier, I think she said it took her 20 years to realize what Aisha was talking about as far as having to curb parts of who you are in order to fit in properly. It took me 30 years to learn that because I was in the hockey world, always having to conform to sort of someone else's rules about who I should be. But now I'm in a position where I'm trying to encourage everyone in hockey to actually just celebrate who they are and celebrate the people around us for who they are. So if you're a young Black hockey player and at times you feel different, that's okay. Just continue to celebrate and be your authentic self at the rink. Encourage your teammates to adapt to you because you don't have to adapt to them.
All right, great. Thank you, Mark, for that input.
Yeah, I really appreciate how just all our panelists and Mark, I just want to like really say how I really appreciate how you've just been talking about really celebrating yourself and looking at the positive when, you know, there's so much negativity in the world, just making sure that, you know, like you don't lose yourself by losing sight of, you know, the good and just looking at the negative while playing hockey, while wrestling, while doing whatever you got to do. Just looking at the negative will like, I've seen how it really like impacts you yourself, like your ability to enjoy what you do. So just by looking at, you know, negative people, being around negative people, being around negative things, it really just stops you from enjoying your art and just being yourself. And it's a lot. And, you know, I really appreciate that you said, you know, that aspect of positivity is so important.
Thank you, Aisha, for that as well. We're going to move into our next question now. Can you speak to an experience of racism you've encountered in your career, and how did you deal with that, and what recommendations do you respond with that, and how do you grow from that?
I'll go first. For me, I would say it's the microaggressions, just in the sense that, can I touch your hair? That is the biggest thing. And for me, I'll use like at MLSE, I have gotten my team, everyone that I work with, so good on it that if anyone comes in and tries to come with that, they protect me, right? And it's just in the sense that if it was somebody else, would you ask them to touch their hair? I'm not a pet. You do not need to touch my hair, right? This is my crown. You don't need to touch it. And you don't try to touch, like, don't even ask. Don't ask, don't touch it, don't anything. And when you work in an environment where you are the only Black female, and part of the joy of being a Black woman is the fact that we can change our hair anytime we like, right? Today I have long hair on, tomorrow it could be a bob. You never know what you're gonna get, or you might get a fro, you never know, right? But that's the biggest form that I face with in like just in the world in general, but in work is, can I touch your hair, right? But when you teach people and educate them, because it's ignorance, right? And when you teach people and let them, like, when you go back to them, because initially I was like, right? But then after a while, I was just like, no. I'm gonna do this back to people and let them know how it feels. And once they realize that was stupid of me to do that, then they learn from that and they can educate others on, yeah, you don't ask someone, especially a Black woman, to touch their hair. we are not in a hair salon. We just like, you are not a hairdresser. Don't ask to touch my hair. Don't touch my hair. Because that's it. I feel like it's equivalent to say, can I pet your dog? Right? And I'm not an animal. So dealing with it at first, yeah, you like, when you're in the corporate world, you kind of just take it at first, but then after that, like after a certain amount of time, it's just like, no, I'm not going to let this go on, because I don't like it. And then I deal with it now with my daughter, just in like her defining herself as a young Black girl. She's 4 years old. She loves Frozen, and she wants her hair always to be like Frozen. And when I will do her hair in like pigtails, and she'll be like, this is ugly. And I'm like, no, sweetie. I do affirmations with her. I'm like, your hair is beautiful. Everyone will love it. And if they don't, that's a them problem. Even when she has her hair out and she's looking wild and crazy, I still tell her she's beautiful. Because as Black women, we need to always, like, hair is like something that our culture is always like, we always have a war with it. So it's like you have straight hair, you have curly hair. It's always an issue because our hair doesn't always fit in with everybody else. And we feel that it should fit in. And I'm trying to raise my daughter, especially, to let her know that her hair is beautiful, no matter what state it's in. She's beautiful no matter what her hair looks like. And for me, I can't enforce that on her if I'm not gonna enforce it myself, right? So the can I touch your hair? That is the biggest form that I deal with. But now I can't tell you the last time someone's asked me that. So I think I'm doing a good job in educating people and letting them know that it's not okay to ask that. It's not okay to do that. And that's pretty much how I've been dealing with it.
I guess for me, honestly, at every single job I've ever had, I've probably dealt with a racist incident or microaggressions. There's been instances where I remember I had a job once where the boss, so I had been hired at a particular position, and I had a male colleague who had been hired at a position under me. And I remember one time we just got to chatting, and I asked him what his salary was. And I found out that day that she had actually offered us the exact same salary. And had I not negotiated my salary, I'd be getting paid the exact same amount as him. I've had instances where, again, certain terms were used to kind of describe me, it's just so many just odd situations. I've had instances where I worked with one other Black colleague. We looked nothing alike, but everybody always used to mix us up at work. And to me, that just kind of felt like they were disregarding who we were as individuals. But I think one that really sticks out in my mind is I remember working somewhere, and I was trying to get access into a building. It was a building that you needed kind of a key card to get into. And as I was walking in, I'd come across two security guards. The first security guard was a racialized man. I showed him my pass. He's like, no problem, head on in. The second one was a white older gentleman. And so I remember being like, hey, like, here's my security pass. I'm about to walk in. And he goes, I've never seen you here before. Well, are you supposed to be here? And I said, yep, like, if I can get to the door and tap my pass, like, you'll know that I'm meant to kind of be in this space. And I remember he would not let me go. And he told me the only way, at some point I got aggravated. Now on a regular day, I'd be like, you know what, I don't want to be that loud and aggressive person. But I said, do you need me to show you a copy of my employment letter because I work here? And he said, nope, you don't have to do any of that. I need you to call somebody that works at the company and tell them to escort you up into the building. And I remember just thinking, like, is this happening right now? This is the weirdest. I was so confused about what's happening. I called a colleague. She eventually kind of confirmed that I worked there, and then I was able to get into the building. And I remember the situation had bothered me the entire day. And I ended up having a conversation with somebody that I know. And I remember him for the first time really telling me, like, essentially somebody has done something to you that didn't make you feel good. You need to confront that person about how they've treated you. And I think in all of the situations I've dealt with in the past, again, just for the sake of not wanting to be the loud, aggressive, or described as angry, or maybe have that used against me, I would kind of just let that go. And in this instance, I remember a few days later, I got to the building and I saw the gentleman and I said, hey, I wanted to let you know that what you did was unacceptable. I felt like you were calling me out for a specific reason. I gave you several different instances to let you know that I work here. And he was just like, oh, okay, well, you know, giving a bunch of excuses. And I said, well, I want to let you know that I work here. I deserve to be here as much as everybody else. And I hope that the next few times that we see each other, there won't be any issues. And like in me walking away, I felt so good about myself because I didn't allow anybody to kind of treat me anyhow. I deserve to be here just like my white colleagues. And I really kind of stood up for myself. And I remember having a conversation with another colleague and he said, you know, that gentleman actually sent him a message to be like, hey, can you kind of like send me a list of everybody that works here? I don't want to end up in any more situations like that. So it's really important when you have situations like that, always stand up for yourself. Remind people that you deserve to be in the spaces that you're in, that they can't treat you anyhow. And you're going to get into some instances where people are going to tell you they do not care. And if they don't care, then you go to human resources. There are resources now set up in this world where if people are going to treat you with disrespect and are going to make you feel uncomfortable, go to the people that can actually handle them so that you end up working in an environment where you deserve to be in a safe, positive space.
That was amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Marion. Yeah, I mean, being a hockey player, I have countless experiences dealing with racism. The first ones that I can really think of that I dealt with when I was about 14 years old, and it was just from fans heckling me when I was in the penalty box, to continuing on at the pro level, the daily microaggressions of walking into a place of work where you know you're, for the most part, the only one who looks like you, and just what that might come with, whether it's an encounter with security while entering the building or what have you. Similar to Matan, I played for the New Jersey Devils, and I had two other Black teammates on my team, and all three of us were biracial. We were all half Black and half white. And one other teammate of mine was like, Black teammate was a similar size as me, but the other one was much shorter with a big afro, and constantly we were always mistaken for each other. Part of us, we would make, jokes that we would laugh about it. I'd also call people up being like, there's 21 white guys on the team, every single one of them, but you just can't figure out who the three of us are, can you? Especially if I'm getting mistaken for a guy who's legit 4 or 5 inches shorter than me with a big afro, and I had like a shaved head. So that was always happening. I mean, from the blatant stuff of being like called awful words from fans during a game, to even just microaggressions sometimes in the locker room of a teammate, me getting down to a particular song and being like, oh man, you can't do that because you're white. But then I do something the next day and I was like, well, of course you can do that, you're Black. And it's like, okay, well, that they might not realize that as racism, but those microaggressions again are just constantly reminding me that I'm whatever identity you folks are choosing I am this day, instead of me actually being the identity I am. That would happen a fair bit in the hockey world as well. So it wasn't always just blatant stuff, but a lot of the passive stuff as well. And as we mentioned earlier, people just assuming I'd be playing basketball because I'm a tall Black man. I think the second part of the questions, though, were, recommendations on how to deal with it and how were we able to grow. And for myself, similar to what I've been hearing from Tara and Marion, is calling people out on it. Again, being in the hockey space, growing up in the hockey world, then becoming pro and never really having a coach or a mentor or a GM or a trainer or anyone who really looked like me, you didn't always feel safe to call things out. You would just kind of like take it on the chin or take it in stride. And I mean, if I complain about this, then I might be the problem, is how you think about it. They're going to look at me thinking, oh, here goes Mark, creating issues in the locker room by complaining about something racist that the coach said to him. So what I do now is I call it out, and I've been getting a little bit more bold in doing so. But similar to Marion and the issue with the security guard, it actually feels good when you do it. I almost take joy sometimes in seeing people's confusion or like taken aback because they're caught off because I maybe snapped something at them, where in reality, what they said actually hurt me and offended me, and you kind of deserve someone clapping back at you. So I just don't let it pass anymore. I'm bold and courageous and feel empowered to actually just say, no, you can't touch my hair. No, you can't pull on my dreadlocks or feel what they're like, or no, you can't say this, or no, you shouldn't be saying that or referring to me as that either. Even when someone refers to if I speak well and someone refers to that coming from the white side of me and being whitewashed, and I'm quick, even with friends, to shut that down and say, that's not being whitewashed, that to assume that I have to be more like you and your culture in order to be articulate. I'm able to be Black and articulate myself. Speaking well isn't synonymous with being white. So I'm just quick to like call that type of stuff out. And to be honest, that's kind of how I've grown. It's allowed me to handle those situations more by just being like, no, I'm not gonna trip on that. I'm just gonna let that person know that what they said wasn't cool, and leave a little something, maybe passive aggressive. I might even say it sarcastically, or I might call them out directly, but it's just to let them know that you can't get away with that. And you shouldn't think it's okay to get away with that. I'm okay. You know, you didn't really greatly offend me, and we can like just squash it right here. But it's important for you to know moving on. Don't say that to people. Don't ask them to touch the hair, or you remind me of this, whatever it may be, or ask ignorant questions. It's rude. And so my advice and how I've been able to grow is from just trying to nip that in the bud as soon as it happens, and not letting people get away with blissful ignorance.
And just to add to that, and that will make them definitely think twice before they do it again, because you never know who else is going to respond back to you, or how people will respond back to you. Like, they're lucky that they're dealing with someone that is not violent, not like that, will talk to them and let them know it's not right. Because there are a lot of people out there that they're just like, nah, this ain't flying, and they'll just get punched in the face. And that is the world we live in also.
Yes, Mark, being as a Black hockey player, it always feels like you are walking on glass, or you're walking on eggshells, whatever it is. There was a time, I think it was about maybe 2 years ago, before the whole pandemic happened, where I got a penalty, and I don't think it felt fair. I felt it was, I don't think it was very fair. And then I don't really let my emotions get the best of me in a hockey game, but at that point, I just couldn't help it, and I smashed my stick on the glass. And then everybody started looking at me like, okay, is this kid okay? Like, is he just gonna have like a full-on, like, is he just gonna have a full-on freak out? Like, I was frustrated. Like, it happens. And like, that was like the first time I ever did it. So that was just more, I think that was just more surprising to everyone. Like, that was like, that's the first time I've ever shown my frustration on the ice. And then my dad talked to me after the game, and he said, I don't think you can do that when you're in the penalty box, because you're going to be handed another penalty if you do that constantly. And Mark, being a hockey player, being a Black hockey player, do you ever feel like you're in that situation?
Definitely. Throughout my whole career, as I mentioned earlier, the aggressive side and the physical side of the game was something I thrived on, but it was also one of my skill sets, using my body to my advantage and using my size to my advantage. I think sometimes I would pigeonhole me into getting called on penalties, that not necessarily because I'm Black, but just because of my size. I might not always get the benefit of the doubt. And I would sometimes be called for penalties where I really didn't agree that it was a good call, just because I was bigger and stronger than my opponent. I very much know how to play within the rules because I did it for so long. And I always had good relationships with referees for the most part. I never, I think for the type of player I was, they knew I was, I would stay on the right side of the line. But what was frustrating is when you do get sometimes a bad call, or someone just does something to you and it's a competitive, high stakes game, and you just show that emotion and frustration. It was then that I was looked at, as we've heard our two other panelists say, the aggressive woman, a Black woman. Well, then I became the aggressive Black man on the ice, where other players or teammates you would see show similar type of aggression, and no one would call them out other than just a passionate athlete. And when I would do it, it would at times be, well, this guy's just being a big, uncontrollable, scary Black man. So that definitely was something that I felt like I had to constantly be aware of in my frustrations. And there's lots of times in hockey with referees where I'd be very frustrated with them, and they would know that. But I always kind of had to maintain some type of composure, because I knew that, again, if whatever response I give, and it's hard to control your emotions in sport at times, I knew that I would be kind of judged at times for that. And similar to what your dad told you, Matan, I would often operate with the same type of thing. I just can't smash my stick in this moment because I'll be looked at differently than if my teammate were having to do that. So that was something I constantly had to navigate through in my hockey career.
Thank you, Mark. Aisha, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the question as well. Again, I barely started, barely have a career, but just with the lived experiences that I've had so far, I like the way everyone collectively just, went to microaggressions, and it just made me realize that what Mark said, when people talk about racism, they talk about racism here, and then it's as if microaggressions and macroaggressions are separate from racism. It's like micro, the word micro, when you put it in there, it's like so small, it doesn't matter. It's just a tiny thing, It's just me touching your hair. It's just me saying, oh, you're big black male, go play football or go play basketball, or how'd your hair grow overnight? Or why does your hair look like that? Or, it's like microaggressions. The word microaggressions is it's as if it's so low, it's so far from racism. And I don't know, personally, I find that microaggressions hurt more than straight up racism. And let me tell you why. It's that, again, my whole identity is I'm facing every little thing that I do. I'm facing different things. So it's whether it's being a woman or being Muslim or being Black, especially being Black, right? I'm being judged, and there's always the microaggressions to go with everything that I'm doing. So if I'm talking, the way I'm talking, a microaggression to go along with it. I gained realization, like, when I was in 7th grade, that's when I gained realization that, what these things people are saying actually mean, that they actually hurt. Before, they used to be said to me like, oh, I'm going to turn off the lights, we won't be able to see Aisha, or Aisha, you look like a monkey. Oh, look at this picture of a monkey. And I don't know, when I was younger, it never really bothered me because I didn't realize, like, it was meant to hurt me. But then in grade 7, there was like a comment made where one of the kids painted a piece of white paper all Black, and then put it next to me and compared and said, look at that, like it blends in clearly. And then everybody just joined in, and the whole entire class was just saying the same thing. And it just turned into a big joke. And I was just like, I don't know, I can't find a way to laugh at this, And I got really upset, and I was looking at the teacher, and the teacher was laughing along with the kids. And I was like, how do you find this okay? Like, this is the first time I'm actually upset about this. And I got really upset to the point where, where Matan broke his stick, I got to the point where I was just crying like hysterically in the middle of my grade 7 class. And the teacher was like, calm down. Like, it wasn't that deep. Calm down, calm down. And I was just crying really hysterically. Like, it was a point where I broke. And from that day onwards, I just caught these things and I pulled them out. And I know that the panelists you've mentioned, calling these things out, but they've just become so often where like, I don't know, I feel like I get annoying calling them out. And like, example, we're in class, teacher constantly brings up how I'm from Kenya, constantly brings up, especially when the teacher's around me, the white teacher, how he goes and saves kids in Kenya. And, the white savior, I've been to Kenya and I've, give them water. I've saved, it's not like one time, that's amazing, incredible, several times over and over and over again. Thank you, Matan. And I'm sitting in class and I'm like, how are you not talking about all these other kids, and they're from different places, and everywhere there's poverty and everywhere there's problems, but you're always bringing up Kenya and Africa and how you're going to save kids there, kids like me, and you're just doing me a favor, right? And I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that there's something wrong with this, and I'm trying to call it out, and I'm always calling it out. And then it always turns into a back and forth between me and the teacher, and everyone's quiet. And I'm thinking, what do they think of me? Do they think I'm that crazy, ghetto, loud Black girl just calling it something that I see that is wrong? And it makes me miss back when I was younger and I didn't get hurt by these things. I didn't realize that it was supposed to be hurtful. So I know I just went on a whole entire blurb, but this is why I like straightforward racism better. I know it sounds a little silly, but because that's so much easier to call out. Because how do you tell a person, specifically a white person, that, you know, them saying they went to save kids from your hometown is, you get offended by that. Like, I don't know how to, so straightforward racism, so much easier to call out. Microaggressions, boy.
Yeah.
I think you touched on something really important in making the comment about microaggressions. I was having a conversation with a friend recently. She's actually an educator, and she said that she doesn't think the term microaggression should actually be used anymore because the magnitude of the impact that actually takes place from microaggressions is not minimal, it's not small. So if somebody makes a comment about your hair, somebody makes a comment about your tone, if somebody makes a comment about going to save kids who look like you in a different country, that the impact that has on you and your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself and how you feel about others is not minimal. And I think in you kind of making you know, these comments as well about calling people out and having to stand up for yourself, I think we also need to recognize that as youth, it's sometimes very different. There's always this expectation that as a young person, you need to treat older people a particular way. And I think in the last few years, one of the biggest things that I've learned is there's so much value in having the adults around you advocate for you. And so I think there's a lot of education kind of taking place with a lot of parents, especially I think about my parents who were immigrants who came here and where they were, you know, educators were always right because they were always held to a high standard, which is totally fair. But I think we're also in a time where Black parents, racialized parents are recognizing that they have to advocate for their kids in the classroom. And so sometimes it doesn't always have to be you standing up for yourself. If a teacher is going to do something that is extremely inappropriate, that makes you feel uncomfortable, that is racist, if a parent can advocate for you, if there's an older sibling that can advocate for you, even if there's somebody in your school, another educator, somebody who works a higher position that can advocate for you, those things really need to be addressed again, because I think right now, one of the biggest things that I've heard is that, again, racism and people's actions, it's not just about intent, it's about impact. So how do the things that you do make other people feel, right? How do the things that you say make other people feel? That those are the things that we always have to consider whenever we do anything, whenever we say anything to people. How is that going to impact those people, myself, and the people around me?
Yeah.
Just to add to that, Marion, yeah, and Aisha, I'm sorry that you have had to experience that, and thank you for sharing those experiences. You're totally right. Sometimes it actually is easier for us to deal with the blatant racism than the microaggressions, because it's easier to confront real evil versus, you know, subtle rudeness and ignorant jerk people. And I totally agree with what Marion just said about the microaggressions. They're micro in the sense that it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, and it's not till the 1,000th one that you actually, you know, it really, really, really hurts to a point where the impact is so much greater than the word micro. It's so much more impactful and hurtful to the victims, especially when it's routine, that it's every day in your environment that you have to deal with some form of it. So I appreciate you the courage to share that. And I'm sorry that that's anything you've had to experience. But again, and reiterating my ability to call people out, that also, honestly, that took, I'm 35 now. That took about 34 years to happen. And a Black Lives Matter movement that got like global, you know, attention for me to get that courage. So that did not come at all easily. I was already done my professional career by the time I gained that skill set. So to again, just echo what Marion was saying, the importance to have others advocate for us too. You know, you can also recognize that you're in a vulnerable spot, as I believe you said you're in the 11th grade, and the world shouldn't be all in your hands to have to solve everyone's problems right now or to solve everyone's issues around you. So if you can have other educators, teachers, a VP, parents, siblings, whomever, to advocate for you as well, and to go up to those teachers or to whatever, you know, other adult it may be who's making these types of aggressions towards you, and to have more than just your voice, not that your voice isn't powerful, but more than just your voice in that person's ear saying, that wasn't actually right when you did that, or, constantly reminding someone of how all the good you do in the country of Kenya is great, but we don't need to hear it all the time. There's other effects and impacts to what those actions have. So I guess what I'm saying is to know that you're not alone, but at the same time, lean and try to reach out and find that help as well, because I think all the three of us panelists here could also say, even sometimes with what we do with our work and on our jobs, at least myself, I realize that it's easier to go to a superior as the collective group than it is to just go by yourself. With regardless, it doesn't even need to be about race. Whatever it is you're trying to convince a person of, it's easier to go with strength and numbers than it is to be alone. So again, just continue to be courageous, but understandably it is tough and challenging, and I didn't learn the skill to do it until I was an adult. So lean on those around you to continue to help strengthen that message for you, because you don't have to bear that all the time on your own.
All right. Thank you, Mark. I would like to make one more thing before we wrap up. I can't believe we didn't talk about where are you from, like that where are you from line that everyone says. The funny thing about me is, a couple facts about me is that I have autism, and yeah, I'm on the autism spectrum, and I am also adopted. That's like one of the last things that I ever tell people, because I can get severely bullied from that. And I have been when I was in 7th and 8th grade at a not so great school. And when people ask me, where are you from? Who are you? I don't know how to answer that. I don't know where my mom was born. I don't know where my dad was born. I don't even know them. So I just answer, yeah, I'm from Canada. And they just stare at me like I've done something wrong. And they're like, oh, cool. And I can see in their head, they're like, oh, damn, I'm really sorry that I asked that question, but it doesn't matter because you said it. You can't unburn paper. Like that mark is made and you've said it. So now that is your problem. And just dealing with that for 10 years, I think I've been asked that question. No, I think I've been asked that question for at least 4 years. And it's the same reaction every time. And it's really frustrating, but that's just a point that I feel like we haven't talked about at all. But yeah.
Well, Matan, again, sorry that those something that you have to deal with, but again, thank you very much for sharing your experience. But quickly, just for anyone who's watching or listening, I can go first if we like. And I say the same thing, Matan. I'm Canadian. I'm from Ottawa. I do, of course, as we discussed, work for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I'm from Ottawa and actually coming to you live from Ottawa. But as I mentioned, I'm also biracial, and I'm very proud descendant of British, Irish, Scottish genes, as well as Jamaican as well. But I'm a proud Ottawa Canadian boy. That's where I'm from.
I say the same thing. I'm Canadian. And then you always get no, where are you from? I was born in Canada, so that's where I'm from, right? And then it's like, so where are your parents from? But my parents, they're from the Caribbean, they're from Trinidad. And a little off topic, but I have a friend that's American, and he's like American, like his family, like they came over on the slave ships. Like that's how far his history goes back. And he gets frustrated all the time because people ask him, what's your background, what's your history? And when he says American, they're like, no, you can't be American. And then they'll give an example and be like, oh, well, I'm this and I'm that. And I tell them all the time, well, they're idiots and who cares? Because your history, you're American. Yes, at some point we're from Africa, but to trace your history as far as you know it, you're American, right? So people asking that question just because you look a certain way, it's highly irritating, because what does it matter?
Yeah, and I guess to kind of harp on that. So it's funny, I think depending on who's asking me that question, I think I just recognize that I respond in a variety of different ways. But I'm Ghanaian Canadian. My parents were born in Ghana, immigrated here, had me. So I was born in Canada, but I think a lot of who I am, my identity, food I eat, things that I talk about, things that I'm interested in are largely impacted by kind of both of those backgrounds and cultures. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I love that, we've all like really put that out there, and just I love the aspect that, you know, the panelists all together, specifically Marion, that you said, you know, just be unapologetically yourself and just be you, you know, whoever you feel like being, whatever you feel like doing, wherever you feel like you're from, just be you. And, you know, it's up to the world to accept who you are as a person. I really, really appreciate all of our amazing, incredible panelists that have taken away so much just by having this conversation. And I hope the viewers are able to take away the same, just so much information, so many things have been awoken inside of me. And I really appreciate that. So thank you all so much. Final words?
Nah, this has been great. Yeah, once again, thank you to Marion, Mark, and Tara for taking time out of your very busy night for having this Black Table Talk and just getting our points through. And hopefully we have enlightened some listeners and some viewers to like realize, okay, maybe that now listening to this, maybe some of the things that I've done, can I touch your hair? Where are you from? All of this nonsense has like gotten the point across that you can't do that. And just thank you overall for listening. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I hope everyone just feels educated, you know, celebrated, and just really can reflect on this even later in life. Yeah, final words for our panelists.
Yeah, I actually wanted to thank the both of you for having us all here. I honestly, it's mind blowing that the two of you are in high school. I don't even think I was as eloquent or like could string words together the way the two of you have, and put a whole podcast together the way the two of you have when I was in high school. So thank you so much. And I appreciate how vulnerable the both of you have also been in sharing your stories and really getting to connect with us. So thank you.
Absolutely. I would echo that. Just thank you to the both of you, Matan and Aisha, and sharing your stories. Yeah, you two are, I see two strong, confident teens right in front of me here. This is amazing. Kudos to the both of you for the young superstars that you are. I'm very proud to have the opportunity to speak with the both of you. So thank you again for having us.
And I just wanted to, again, mirror everything that Mark and Marion had just said. And Matan and Aisha, I can't wait to see where you guys go from here, because I see your potential, I see your greatness. And yeah, hopefully you don't have to deal with things that we have to deal with. And you guys will be able to have a little bit of an easier journey to your greatness.
Yeah, thank you all so much for your amazing, kind, encouraging words. It means so much to just hear these things, these affirmations, and just so much appreciation and love for you all. Thank you all so much for being here on behalf of MLSE. We thank you all so much for, you know, joining us here today and really giving it your all in this conversation. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to end it here. Thank you all for joining us on this podcast, and go Leafs.